Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brendan, and in this video, I wanted to show you how to dynamically pass in values from multiple APIs and create posts on your WordPress website. And I think it's easy enough to pass in like the post title and the post content. It's a little harder to pass in the featured image. So we want to be able to basically post an image and get it into our WordPress site. And so the way that looks here, I'm just going to add a new city here. We'll add Manila. I think that's where WordCamp is right now. So basically, what we're doing is creating a post title, and then it's going to start the automation based on that trigger, and it's going to write a short description of that city. It's going to post that in Markdown content as well, and then it's going to make an API call to Pexels to actually get an image of that city and paste all that into another API call to WordPress that we're uploading the featured image to that particular post. So there's a couple things at play. I just thought it would be helpful to kind of go through how to do this, what it looks like, and what the outcome is. We're going to be looking at stuff like dynamic URL routing. We're going to use the Pexels API, the WordPress API, and the Airtable API to basically push and pull data to and from. And at the end, we're going to end up with a more enriched spreadsheet with, you write only a post title and it's going to add the content and all that good stuff for us. So we'll see here in a few short moments that it's going to, uh, it runs every minute or whatever, and it's done that. So it's, I didn't click anything there. That was just the automation running. So it has created our post description. It's added the external URL. It's added the actual featured image for that post. And it's changed the status to posted. So if I come back to my WordPress site, I can see there's Manila and all my other cities. I can click on it. Here's our city, and we have our featured image attached here. We have our short description. So that's basically the flow I wanted to show you guys. It's a little more involved than just passing in the post title and the post content because we need to basically handle the featured media. So I'll show you how to do that in this tutorial, and I hope that this is helpful for you. If you found this content useful, go ahead and give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Anything to help other people learn this stuff. So that's always the point of my videos. So I appreciate you sticking around, and let's get into it. Real quick, a word from our sponsor of this video, BigScoots. I remember when I was first starting out building websites, my website would always go down and support was always a nightmare. That's what you get when you use cheap shared hosting. Today, I'm here to spread the good word about BigScoots, a managed WordPress hosting company for people who build serious websites. They specialize in WordPress hosting and actually understand what agencies and their clients' needs. Their fully managed hosting means you spend less time troubleshooting and more time building your business. Plus, their support team just knows WordPress inside and out, which is rare these days. If you're looking for a hosting solution that just works, BigScoots is worth checking out. Now back to the video. All right, let's get started on building the workflow itself. So I'm just going to go make a new workflow. All right. And for this workflow, we're going to use an Airtable trigger because we want to, when we come into Airtable and we type in the title of our post, we want it to basically read that as a new post and then run through the flow. So the way we'll do that is just opening a trigger here and searching for Airtable. All right, so we have Airtable, and there's only one trigger, and it's for on new Airtable event. And I've already got my personal access key added. It's pretty easy to set up. Our polling mode is every minute, so it's going to try and run every minute if there's a change. And then we just need to, and you can change these to like, I might have it on every hour, so it's not running every minute or not looking for changes every minute. But just for this video, I'll leave it on every minute. And what we need to do is then come back to Airtable and paste in our base and our table URL. So I'm just going to grab this and paste this right in here. And I'll do that on both of them. And right here, we have to decide what field is it going to look at to trigger. And if you hover over this, it'll say you need a created time or a last modified time field in your Airtable that'll be used to sort the records. If you don't have these in your schema, please create one, because without this field, the trigger won't work correctly. And so we need to basically pass in that field name. And I've already created a couple fields here. I've got title, content, and we'll go through some of these other ones a little bit later when we actually fill them out in the flow. But I've also got a created and last modified. So if I type in here like London, it's going to automatically add the day and the time. So that's very helpful for knowing letting the trigger know when to run. And so we basically just need to type in the name of this field into our trigger field called created. And then I can fetch events. And you can see this now is it's like lit up, and I can actually hit fetch. And there it is. There's our unique Airtable ID that's hidden. There's our created time. That's also these are both hidden fields basically. And then I've got fields for the title, right? There's London. I don't have any other fields filled out. And it's set to draft. And then there's an automatic created time and a last modified time. All right. And I believe if I come back in here and just like add test in here, and I come back and test this workflow again, it's going to, it's going to have my content in there as well. So that's how you know it's active and pulling in the latest data. So I'll just go ahead and delete that. But basically we have our title here, and now our trigger is working. So what do we want to do? Well, I'd like to fetch an image dynamically from Pexels. So let's just do that. What we're going to do is add an HTTP node. And if I come to the Pexels authentication, or like Pexels documentation rather, we can see that we have, there's a bunch of resources in here. I'm just down on the photo resources and the photo. And so I just want to be able to search for photos dynamically. So I can look at here at an example request. I can see there's a curl command to pass in an H for header, and it's passing in a key of authorization, and the value is going to be our API key. And then this is going to be our URL here. And everything after this is going to be query parameters. And so what I could do is actually I could just copy this whole curl command, and I come back to my workflow, and there's a nice little feature here to import curl. It did not grab it though. So let's go make sure we copied it. Paste that. And you can see it pulls in the exact same terminology and all the different commands. And so I can just import that, and it's going to put the base URL here, right? It's going to add the query of nature. It's doing a per page of 1. So it's only getting 1 image rather than, I think the default is 15 from Pexels. So we're just getting 1 image. And then we have down here, we're sending headers as well. And this is to get our authorization so we can actually authenticate into the API and get data. And so if I just test this right now, it's not going to work because it's going to say I'm unauthorized because I haven't actually put my API key in, right? So how do we get that? Let's go back to the Pexels main page. Now I'm logged in with just an account I just created. And once you're logged in, you can go to this little 3 dots and click on Image and Video API. And if you already have an API key, you'll click this to view it. I don't think I have one set up. No. So let's just call this Brendan Demo Project. Select the category of personal use for fun. I want to use your beautiful photos in my demo. I will not be selling anything, just teaching about APIs. How much do I need to type? I guess that's good. I don't need to enter a URL or anything. I'll just hit accept and generate an API key. Okay. So I don't know if I need to do that. Let's just copy this API key and come back into n8n, and I'll paste this API key here, and we'll hit test. And just like that, we are authenticated perfectly in, and we get a bunch of data back. So there's our 1 photo, right? If I change this per page to 10, we would get 10 photos, right? There's our per page of 10, and we get 10 different photos. We just want one photo for now. And what else can we do? We can pass in other query parameters, like we can do orientation, and I could say portrait, portrait, like a type. And instead of our query of nature, let's type in trains, and we'll test that. And perfect. So it is coming back with one photo, and I can already tell. You can usually tell like by the URL. It says like photo of railway on mountain, and I can also copy that and check it out. And you can see it is portrait size, not landscape. And again, I can just do landscape, test that, and it's a different train now, right? Oops, let's grab this URL for the source URL. We'll paste that in, and it is landscape. So everything's working there with the API. Now, what we want to do actually, instead of passing in a static value into the query parameter, let's drag in our title from Airtable. So I can just go ahead and drag title. You can see it turns green, letting us know it's working. You can see there's the actual result. If you click out, it'll also say the result right underneath here. Let's test that. And again, you can already tell it's working. There's London cityscape. And again, let's grab this image. There's Big Ben. So it's working flawlessly. Now, what else can we do here? You can see we passed in the header values here, but if you want to be able to reuse this key multiple times and you don't want to have to type it in, what we can actually do is just turn this off. And instead of sending headers, we can we can choose to like authenticate. And so I'm going to hit this drop down, and instead of a predefined credential, that'll be like an app. You'll see like, app, Airtable, Asana, Azure, Calendly, etc. We don't want to choose an app. We just want to choose a generic credential type. And that lets us choose between like basic, header, OAuth, etc. So we will choose header auth because we want to pass it in to the header. Now I already have a key here. It says delete me. I should have deleted that before the video, I guess. Let's just create a new one. And so again, if we come back to the documentation, what do we need in our header authentication? We need the word authorization as the key, and we need the API key. In fact, I closed it, I think. No, here it is. So we need to grab our API key, and we'll add that as our value. And another reminder here, you always want to rename these because otherwise you'll just get a bunch of header auths and you don't know which one's which. So I'll just name this Pexels API header auth, and I'll save that. And it should be successfully authenticated. So now we're just passing in a header auth that's sort of already set up for us, so we don't have to type in our API key every single time. And so again, I can test this, and it should be, I'm still authenticated. And I guess just to show that, you could do authorization and I'm just going to type in random stuff here. Delete me. I don't actually want to use this one. And so there's my delete me. And if I try and do it, I'm just going to say, you're not authenticated. That's not the right API key. So I'll select the one I just made, Pexels API header auth. And again, we're authenticated. So we have been able to pass in dynamic URLs into a query. We're using authentication with the header, and we're getting data back. So everything's working as expected. And the other thing I'll do here is rename this HTTP request, and we'll just name it like get image from Pexels. And again, we're going to be using quite a few HTTP request nodes in this. So you just want to make sure you name them so you can see what they're actually called. Okay. So we're in good shape here. So now what we need to do is likely we want to pass this data into WordPress because we want to create a post in WordPress. So I will select the next step, next action, and we'll search for WordPress. And what we're going to do is create a post. Now, if you were creating custom post types and you weren't using the /posts URL parameter, you would need to do a custom API call. And we'll do that a little bit later on. You'll see why. But right now, we're just going to create a post. We'll keep it pretty simple today. So I have an authentication here. Let's just delete this because it's not even working anymore. So let's just make a credential from scratch. I don't have a credential to authenticate into WordPress. We're going to need to do that. So I'll hit create. And what we need to do is pass in a username and an application password. This is not your password that you log into WordPress with. That we're going to go create an application password. And so I'm going to go to my WordPress site here. And we need to go down to our users. And you got to make sure, of course, you're an admin as well. So I'll click on my username, and I'm going to make a application password here called n8n demo. And I'll click add new application password. Now you got to make sure you copy this. This is the only time you're going to be able to see this. Otherwise, you'll have to delete and remake it. So I've got that copied, and I'll come back to my workflow, and I'll type in my username. I'll type in my password, my application password. And I also going to need the WordPress URL. So let's grab that. Paste that in there. And again, make sure you rename these because as you get more and more of them, it's going to be harder to tell which one's which. So I'll just put the actual domain in there and I'll click save. All right. So we said the connection is successful. It's green. We can move on to the next step. Perfect. So we're authenticated in with our credential. We're posting it to the posts, and we're creating a post basically. You can also like get posts and update posts, that kind of stuff. So what do we want the title of our post to be? Well, if we're making city pages, we probably just want to use the city name or whatever the searched is. So we'll just pass that in, and we're going to call it London. All right. And let's go ahead and we'll test this now. And you can see it was successful, right? So if I come back to my WordPress site, go to posts, there's London, and it's set to draft. So what I can do is I can add a couple more fields here. I can be like status instead of draft. Let's just make it published. And again, I can test that. There's my status of publish. Come back here. There it is. So we have our draft one and we have our published one. Perfect. Let's go ahead and delete these. Don't need them right now. So let's go back to our workflow. And what else do we want to do? We want to actually attach that image that we created in the previous step, right? How do we get that into WordPress? If I come down to add fields, I don't see anything for featured media. I just see like the format, the ping status, tag names, template, the content. We might use the content. Most of this stuff I'm not going to use. We don't need a different author name. We are already authenticated with our user. We're not going to need to create the slug because that's created automatically. But I don't have featured image. So how do we get the featured image? Well, this is why you're here. This is why you're still watching this video, I'm sure. And so let's get the featured image in. And so what we're going to do 3 different calls. We're going to first download the image from Pexels. Then we're going to post the image into the media library. And then we're going to be able to do an update on the post to attach the featured image to the post, right? So let's just do that. And the way we're going to do that is, again, 3 different HTTP request nodes. So let's just go to actions. We'll do HTTP. And again, I'll rename these just because it really does help. So this is going to be our download image. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a GET request. That's right, because we're going to try and get an image from a URL. And we don't have the image in WordPress yet. So I need to kind of collapse this previous step and go back to the image from Pexels step. And I'm going to grab just the full URL there and just paste it right in there. Okay. And that, I believe, is all we're going to need for that step, because we can just hit test and it's going to return the data here. I can see the file, right? And I can see the size, I can see the MIME type, I can see the file extension, the file name, all that good stuff. So now we have a file that's basically waiting for us to be able to do something else with. So we can go on to the next step, which will be to post that into our image library in WordPress. So again, if I just search WordPress, if I just search WordPress, there's nothing about media here, right? Create a page, no. Create posts, no. We've already done that step, but we need to create media. And so what I can do is do a custom WordPress API call. So let's click that. And if I come out here, we can see it's just a regular HTTP node. It's not, doesn't have the WordPress logo, but we're going to basically do the same thing. And what we're going to do is post this image. So we're not going to get it. We're going to post the media file to the library, right? So I will be able to type in my URL here, right? I can come back and grab, well, let's see, I can actually go to here. Is it here? No. No, I'm going to need to just type it in. So let's just grab the URL, paste that in there, and I'm going to do wp-json/wp/v2/ and where are we going to post this? Well, we're going to post it to the media library, right? We're not going to do it to a post yet. And so first we need to get the media into the media folder in WordPress. Our credential type is going to be generic, not generic. No, it's going to be predefined, and we're going to do WordPress, right? And there's our authentication because that has our password so we can authenticate. Okay. So next, we need to pass some important parameters to basically let WordPress know that this is a file. So we're going to send a header, and our header is going to be two values. So we're going to do content disposition, and our content disposition is going to be an attachment, and then we're going to pass in another value. So I'm going to do a semicolon there, and we're going to pass in a file name, and that's going to be equal to whatever we want it to be. Basically, we just don't want it to be a string of numbers if we can avoid it. So we need to get the other, basically I'm just going to pass in the city name. Whatever our query is going to be that name. And so let's just go ahead and test some of these flows here. And now I can grab the previous nodes. And so I'm just going to go back to the first trigger node, and I'll grab the title. We're going to put the title in here, and just make sure I put a backspace there. And we're going to say the file name is the name of the post .jpg. Okay. So that's going to be able to pass in a unique file name. So it's not just a string of numbers. This step is a little easier in other automation platforms, but they don't allow you to necessarily rename it here, which I'm just taking an extra step to do that. So anyway, that's going to work. It's going to pass it in as attachment. There's our file name and a file extension. And we also need to pass in something called the content type. And the content type is really just the type of media it is. And this is an image. It's a JPEG image. And so what we're actually going to do is switch this. So it's, we're grabbing it from this node here. So the download image step, and we're just going to grab this MIME type because we need that to again tell WordPress like what type of media is it? Is it an SVG? Is it a video? No, it's an image. So what we can do is type here, and I'm going to open up the expression editor, and we're going to try and get the binary data type. So if I type in the double curly brackets, and then I have some suggested options here, and we're going to get the binary data. I'm going to click that. And I can see here, okay, I get the object with all the different values in there. So I'm just going to use dot notation to get to the MIME type, which is the image / JPEG. So just dot data dot MIME type. I can see there it's passing in image / JPEG. So that should be all we need for the header. Now we also need to pass in a body. So we'll pass in a body, and what we're going to do is pass in this exact file as the body of the post request. So this needs to be body content type is going to be not JSON, but the n8n binary file. And then what's the name of this? Well, it's just called data right now. You could rename this in the previous step to like image dash data or something. So if you have multiple, you might want to be more specific, but ours is just data. So let's go ahead and test this out. And I'll hit test. And it was successful. It's all green. That's good. I like to see that. And I can see here it's an attachment type. And I can see here we have our title of our image. I don't know why it's London 4 because that's literally the name of the image, right? So that looks like it's working. Now let's go back to our WordPress site and we'll go to our media folder. And look, there's our image of London. So it is working and it has created the image directly in WordPress. And so now, again, just bear with me. We're almost done. But now we need to basically attach that image to our post that was created a couple steps prior. So we need another HTTP request because again, we can't use the default WordPress one. Sometimes you can, and I just end up using the HTTP one because it's just easier and it feels more straightforward to me. But in any case, this one's going to be attach featured image to post. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to want to post that image, basically to update our image. And so instead of a get request, we're just going to make it a post request. And then I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste the URL here. So this is just our domain and then /WP JSON, all that. And then we're putting it in the posts. Now, if you were doing it in custom post, you could change this here. So authentication, we're going to again get our predefined authentication, WordPress. And then we're going to want to pass in a couple different parameters. So first of all, our posts, we want to make sure we're getting we're posting it to the post that is connected with this one, right? So we can go down to our WordPress node and let me just change this so we can see it better. We're going to change this to which post do we want to post in? Well, we need to pass in the ID. And because we've created the post already, we do have the ID right here. So I can just drag that in. Sometimes when you drag it in, there's a space. So I'm just going to make sure to backspace that. And that makes sure that it's the actual post of the city, not the featured image ID. We're going to use that as well, though, because what we need to do is we need to say, okay, so it's this post ID, but we want to attach the image ID from the previous step here, which is 16, right? So there's our download image and our, wait a second. Did I misname these? I didn't name this. This is why you got to name it. So this one is going to be, this one's post image because we're posting the image. Let's rename that. So we have download image, then we're posting it to WordPress, and now we need to attach it. So what I need to do is actually change, not this, we don't want the JSON ID for the post ID. We want the actual post ID from a couple steps back. And that's going to be our WordPress post ID. So let's just drag that in. All right. And then what actually we're going to do is send body data. So we're going to send some JSON body data. And what field do we want to update? So basically, we want to update the featured media one. Look, there's the featured media. It currently has nothing attached to it, right? So how do we attach it? Well, let's just pass in featured media, and then we'll take the post image step and we'll drag that ID. All right, so now we're basically saying, okay, post to this post ID and add this featured media ID to that post as the featured media. All right, so let's go ahead and test step. Okay, perfect. So looks like it's working. I can come down, scroll down a little bit, and there our featured media now has a value in it. Okay, let's go back to WordPress. Let's go back to our posts. I guess I trashed it, so let's restore it. I don't know which one it was. Posts. Nope, not that one. It is the other one. Okay, so there it is. And it's attached to this image, so that's working. Let's go ahead and just run. Let's just save this for now. And I'll do test workflow. And it's going to run through that same workflow again. And it should be able to, now if I go back to WordPress, see London is published, click in there, there's our image. Perfect. So it is working just like we want. It has done a download image step, then posting the image, and then attaching that image to WordPress. Okay, so that's the bulk of the flow. I think this is a pretty helpful thing to just understand how to pass data between posts. We're passing a couple different unique IDs to get certain posts and certain media. But let's go ahead and make this a little more well-rounded. Let's go ahead and just add another. We'll add another field here, and we'll send all this data back to Airtable. Right. So what I'm going to do is say create or update a record. And what we want to do is we're creating or updating. So it'll actually update fields that already exists and add to it. So let's just go ahead and choose our correct base. There's the WP API and from our table of n8n demo. And again, what we want to do, this lets us match a unique ID. So we're going to actually close all these. And we're going to go back to our first step because Airtable already creates a unique ID for each record. So I'll just drag that in there. And we're not going to update the title or anything because we already have the title, but we're going to update a couple other fields. So here's our featured image WordPress image URL. All right, so that step is in our post image, right? And that's just going to be like this one. So I can just go drag featured image URL, and you can see there it is. So it's green and it's working. If I click that, it's a live URL. Perfect. So we also we could say, okay, well, I have my WordPress URL, but I also want to save the original URL. So again, I can come back to our get image from Pexels HTTP request, and I can drag you could drag any of these size images in there, but I'm just going to drag the original one in there, and there it is. So we're able to grab the images and then put them back into our Airtable so we can kind of build out our Airtable a little bit. And let's just change our status to posted, because at the end we want to say, okay, this has been posted. And you could also grab stuff like the post ID if you want of the actual post, right? So I could drag that in. And let's go ahead and test this step, and we'll come back to Airtable. And just like that, you can already see there's my little indication saying that it's posted. There's the featured image URL. There's the external URL, and our status is now posted. Okay. So let's go ahead and save this, make it active. And then I can also just start adding more, right? I could do like Paris, and it's going to take, a minute to run the flow, but I can also add multiple at once. So I could do like 2 different cities, and it's going to do 2 calls, get the unique ID, post that to WordPress, and we'll be able to take a look. So I'm just going to come back when it's done. Okay, and we're back, and it has posted. Just, you can see a minute after it was created, it has posted these. And, you can see, obviously, that if it's posting to the WordPress site, it was successful there as well. So if I come back here, let's refresh, there's Paris and Tokyo. So Tokyo, I've got my Tokyo image, and my Paris one, I've got my Paris image. It's not like a picture of the city. It looks like it's just people wearing berets. Anyway, so that's working, and that's basically the gist of the flow. It is getting an image, passing that image dynamically from from the Airtable into the URL for Pexels. Then it's creating the post from the Airtable record. It's downloading that image, posting the image to WordPress, and then attaching the featured image to that unique post. And then it's sending all that data back to Airtable, so it's able to update and figure out like, okay, this is all working fine. So perfect. So that's working as intended. Now I want to do a couple things here. So let's also just add like a simple AI routing to create some content, and we'll also convert it to Markdown. So we have both options. So we have sort of a more robust and enriched spreadsheet. So to do that, what I need to do is basically before the WordPress creation step, we need to add another couple nodes. So let me just make some space here, and I'll just add like a simple AI node. You could do this a couple different ways, but I'll just use simple chat GPT. So we're going to message a model, and what are we going to say in our message? Let me just search just use like 4.0 mini for our model. And for our text, we're going to say, I'm going to just copy this because I don't really want to type it out. Video's already getting long. So first of all, we can switch this to expression, and that lets us drag in variables in here. So I just have some simple stuff here of return only WordPress block markup, right? 2-paragraph description of city name or whatever the post is for a location SEO page. The HTML should only include H2s and below, paragraphs, list. Do not include comments, body, other HTML tags. And I have this little bit, do not include this like backtick HTML at the beginning or the end. You can play around with this. You can see what kind of output you get. I included these extra instructions so that it won't do that. You could also add it like as a system message, I think. I don't see system message actually. Oh, you could add like a different message and change it to system. There's a bunch of different ways to do that. Not really the purview of this tutorial, but this will give you a good idea. So let's go ahead and test that step. Okay. So it's like taking the data and it's writing it. There's our output. You can see it has HTML tags and some paragraph tags and just a simple description of the city. And so now what we can do is come to our WordPress post. And so before it creates the post, let's add another field for content. And now we can add our content from OpenAI into the content of WordPress. And so that'll be our page content for the city. So we'll have a city name, we'll have a city description or summary or whatever written by ChatGPT. So that's working. That's perfect. And then let's also, because I have a little section here for Markdown. You might want to have your content also in Markdown. So it's really easy to do that in n8n. There's a Markdown node. You can convert data to and from Markdown, or like Markdown to HTML or the reverse. So we're going to do HTML to Markdown. I'll just drag that content right in there. And again, you can rename this. I could do like Markdown dash data. So we have a unique name for it. So I'll just test that. And perfect. It is, basically done already. It has added my H2. That's what the little hashtag thing is here. So we have our Markdown data. So we're not necessarily going to use that on WordPress, right? But we might want to have that for use in other sources. And so I just wanted to show that quick step basically on how to get Markdown content. And now what we can do is come back to the end of it, and how we were sending our data back to Airtable. We can say, okay, well now we have, let's go ahead and just test our steps up to here so we get data to work with. You can see this will turn green. Everything's good there. Now for our content, we can collapse all these, and there's our content. That's our HTML content or our page content in WordPress. And we can also get our Markdown content by coming in here to get our MD-data. That's the output, right? That's the input. This is the output. So we can drag that into there. So that is working perfectly. So again, let's just go ahead and save. Workflow is active. Let's go back here and let's talk about, I don't know, Berlin. And let's write about Barcelona. And we'll do, I don't know, Seoul. So we get something on another continent as well. So now those are basically queued up, and the system is going to, next time it runs, which should be soon, it's going to do all the same queries that we saw before. It's going to get our image for that post. It's going to write about the post, a summary of it in HTML. Then it's going to convert that to Markdown, post that to WordPress, then download the image, then post the image and attach that image to the WordPress post. So, it does end up being, I don't know, 9 different nodes here to do a fairly simple thing, but it's also like, hey, once it's set up, then you're good to go. And it's a more robust system in the sense that like now we have all this data properly organized. We're going to get our content. We're going to get Markdown content. We can sort of enrich this spreadsheet with more and more stuff as it gets more, as it grows. So hopefully we will see shortly that this data, there it is. So it is coming in. We've got our HTML, just a simple summary of the city. We have it in Markdown format. We have the featured image, the external image. It's changed its status to posted. And look at that. We're starting to build out our site. So let's go back to WordPress. Click here. There's our new cities. So we have them added. Again, we can come to Berlin. There's our things to do in Berlin. I could have converted this to like actual blocks. Right now it's just HTML, but I can just click convert and it's going to be able to know that because it's smart enough to do that. But we have our image of Berlin. We got Seoul. We've got Barcelona. So yeah, a simple post creation that includes not just simple post title and post content, but we've done the slightly more complex and involved process of actually getting an image, attaching it into the post, having it be unique, having it, dynamically pulled in from an external source. So I hope that this has been somewhat helpful to understand dynamic URL routing, creating flows that will do a couple different things, and then also enriching spreadsheets from just a single title here will end up filling in all these other fields for you automatically on command. Let me know what you think. I hope that this has been helpful for you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. If you found this useful, you know what to do. Like and subscribe. All right. Take care and see you in the next one.